Joining me now is Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin. Governor, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, good morning, Maria. Great to be with you as well. And thanks for highlighting the need in Washington, D.C. As you know, we've had an extensive partnership with the federal government in Virginia. It's shown huge results, over 3,500 arrests. That's exactly what needs to happen in Washington, D.C. And I'm glad to see it happen under the leadership of Terry Cole, our former Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security.
And that is exactly the reason that President Trump and FBI Director Kash Patel have been praising your law enforcement model during this takeover announcement. Here they are yesterday. Watch this.
Northern Virginia, we had a big success.
Mr. President, the following is what happens when you let good cops be cops. And what are we going to bring to D.C.? What we did in Northern Virginia, thanks to Terry Cole and Governor Youngkin and the team, we stood up a task force out in my Northern Virginia field office, and we said, let's let good cops be cops. Let's get them the intelligence and what they need, and let's get the red tape out of their way, and let's get DOJ partnered up with us to bring great prosecutions. And that's exactly what we did. In 1 month, we arrested 545 violent felons. 545 in the state of Virginia, thanks to Governor Youngkin's partnership. And that simplicity in law enforcement is what's coming to Washington, D.C.
Governor, thank you so much for your leadership on that. What can you tell us about Arlington County, Alexandria County, the counties that share that border with Washington, D.C.? Have you seen the kind of crime spikes that we've seen in Washington, D.C. before you led this fix?
Well, let me first begin with the partnership started right after the inauguration of President Trump. And we could have never gotten anything like this done under President Biden. They wouldn't let police do policing. And as soon as President Trump was inaugurated, I had a chance to sit down with Kristi Noem and Kash Patel and the entire leadership team of the Trump administration. And we architected this partnership between state resources and federal resources. And we went to work. And let me tell you, Director Patel's 100% right. You let good cops do their jobs, and they will do them. And of course, we have seen these huge results, 3,500 arrests, but most importantly, safer communities. And yes, we have had some pushback from the liberal leadership in Arlington and Fairfax, but at the end of the day, we're doing the job because it needs to be done. And that's exactly what's going to happen in Washington, D.C. And I'll reiterate, Terry Cole, who is the now director and administrator of DEA and is leading this effort on behalf of the administration, is the best man in the country to do this. I have huge confidence in him, and I want to thank President Trump for taking this big step.
And I saw him on Fox News yesterday. I was very impressed, and I was thinking about your leadership and how you've cleaned up things in Virginia. How do you think Washington, D.C. got this bad, Governor? I mean, what happened? Was it just that, the fact that there were no consequences for crime?
No consequences. I mean, let's go back to 2023 again. What Washington, D.C. leadership did was water down penalties. They watered down penalties for violent crimes, and they turned carjacking into a slap in the wrist. And I have to say it was broadly supported. Listen, the Democrat governor candidate in Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, voted to support lessening penalties for violent crimes in Washington, D.C. And here she is running in Virginia to be governor. I will say Winsome Earl-Sears, who was the Republican candidate, understands what it means to back the blue. And that's why I'm so supportive of her candidacy and reminding everybody that we got to stand strong for law enforcement to keep our communities safe. And that's what Winsome will do. And Abigail Spanberger has already voted with her own vote in Washington that she supports reducing penalties for violent criminals.
Well, this is a great point that you've made, and we've spoken with Winsome on this program before. You need to see someone pick up the pieces and continue to do what you've begun there in Virginia and all of the changes that you've made in Virginia. What do you want to see as a priority for the next leadership once you do leave the post?
Well, from the very first day of our administration, we have been unleashing opportunity in the Commonwealth of Virginia, driving a 25% reduction in regulations, bringing in companies, driving workforce development, unleashing private capital, and it's translated into record job growth. And as a result, record revenues for the state, which have allowed us to have $9 billion of tax relief, and yet record investments in education and law enforcement to keep our communities safe. It works. Common sense works. And so we've got to continue to drive the private sector. We've had $125 billion of commitments from companies who are moving to Virginia to build, or ones that are already here. And as I said, this is a virtuous cycle. Winsome Sears knows how to do this. She's been doing it with me from day one. And I would ask everybody, go to winsomeforgovernor.com and support her, because we've got to win in Virginia to keep things moving.
And you were among the first businessmen who went and took a political position, becoming the governor of Virginia. We saw how well that worked out. Now we're watching the Trump administration as Donald Trump was a businessman, but became the leader of the free world and is making real change that matters to the American people. I want to get to your breaking news, Governor, because the administration is bringing back innovation. The state of Virginia is following that lead, led by your incredible expertise. You're working to boost the state's innovation, talent, and capital with a technology-charged announcement. Tell us about the breaking news and this partnership that you are unleashing to unleash Virginia innovation, Governor.
We're launching Lab to Launch today. And this is a cooperative agreement with our leading universities to accelerate innovation and to jumpstart startups. And the reality is, across the whole nation, we have seen R&D spending at universities grow 50% in the last 10 years, well over $110 billion a year today. But patents and inventions and startups have been flat. The results have not kept up with the increased R&D spending. And we're changing that in Virginia. And so today we are launching a whole new agreement. First of all, we are going to accelerate and streamline the licensing of intellectual property to the entrepreneur that came up with it. Something that used to take 9 months to a year, we're going to get done in 30 to 60 days. We've standardized the terms. We brought the terms way down. We're going to have the national leading terms for equity percentages and for royalties, so that our great researchers absolutely want to do the research in Virginia and commercialize in Virginia. And I'm talking to researchers across the whole country, come to Virginia. We are also making sure they have access to capital. There's grants available to cover patents and commercialization expenses. But on top of that, our venture capital community has grown at lightning pace the last 3.5 years. And we're providing access of that great venture capital community, now top 10 in the country, to all of these entrepreneurs. And finally, we're putting an entrepreneur in residence in place in our university setting to coach these researchers to start businesses. At the end of the day, this is all about accelerating commercialization, accelerating innovation, and making Virginia the best place to not just come up with great ideas, but to turn them into great businesses. That's
a great idea. So you're basically looking to accelerate the number of startups in Virginia. You want small business to see Virginia as the place to grow. You're doing that through deregulation, the fast-track license, the entrepreneur in residence, and the venture capital. How specifically, in addition to the deregulation and the entrepreneur in residence, how are you going to attract those big money venture capitalists to come to Virginia?
So money follows ideas. That's something I know really well, Maria. And what's happened over the last 3.5 years in Virginia is we have seen the fastest growth of high growth startups in Virginia's history. 15,000 high growth startups that have been launched in Virginia, and the venture capital has come to support them. And now we want to feed even greater number of ideas and inventions and opportunities into this great ecosystem of capital availability. Listen, at the end of the day, money follows ideas, and when they have a chance to commercialize those ideas and turn them into returns, we have the best ecosystem in America. That's exactly what we're building, and that's why today's Lab to Launch initiative will lead the nation in making sure that great ideas on the laptop make their way into the business arena.
I love it, Governor. Congrats on that. Look, you've been notching big wins for the state of Virginia. That includes a $100 million investment by the company Plucked, which will create sustainable indoor farming operations in its first U.S.-based plant. You're seeing record-setting tourism spending, more than $35 billion last year. You're working on increasing broadband access to Virginians and streamlined rules from the Commerce Department. So you've got a lot going on. But, of course, the governor is limited to serving only one consecutive four-year term, which is why you are getting behind Winsome Sears in a big way. Governor, are we going to see you as part of the primary running for president in 2028?
Maria, I am going to finish strong in Virginia. I wish I had 8 years, but I only have 4. So we're getting 8 years worth of work done in 4 years, which means in this last stretch to January, we got a lot of ground to cover. I'm also really focused on supporting Winsome. Listen, at the end of the day, this success that you've just described has been driven by a very, very specific program. Common sense, conservative policies. Winsome Sears has been here with me from the very beginning. She knows how to do this. And let me reiterate, Abigail Spanberger does not know how to do this. She does not know how to build business. She actually has been a big advocate for increased regulation. She's been a big advocate for getting rid of right to work. She's been a big advocate for increased taxes. This is what she has advocated for. That's why Winsome Sears has to pick up the mantle, and she has to run to lead Virginia to get Virginians even further ahead than they already are.
I got it. But, Governor, I know that the GOP has a deep bench. We know J.D. Vance is going to be there probably. We think Marco Rubio is going to be there probably. But will Governor Glenn Youngkin be in the primary for 28?
Well, our top job today is to make sure that President Trump and J.D. Vance are as successful as they possibly can be. That's what we're focused on right now. And I think that's where all America should be focused.
Governor, it's great to see you. Thank you so much, Glenn Youngkin in Virginia.
Great. God bless you. Thank you.
And to you.